Now, more of Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute, the only show directly addressing the problems and solutions for Illinois. Now, from AM 560, here's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with Michael Lucci, Vice President of Policy at the Illinois Policy Institute, illinoispolicy.org. And Michael, Wisconsin became the surprising 25th state to pass right-to-work legislation, or was Michigan after Wisconsin? I can't remember the order. But anyway, our Midwestern neighbors are going right to work. A split, 50-50 split right now. 25 states are right to work, and 25 states are not right to work. And, of course, the comparison in economic performance may be instructive, holding everything else equal. But now we have the possibility that a state will tip the balance in favor of right to work. West Virginia, poised to perhaps become the 26th state to adopt right to work. West Virginia, which is a pretty substantial union state traditionally, the coal miners union, for example.
Right, and as you mentioned, we've had Indiana, then Michigan, then Wisconsin. Then if West Virginia goes here, I mean, you're really starting to see the industrial Midwest, the heartland of the country, moving towards worker freedom, and that, frankly, puts pressure on the other states, the outliers, the Ohio's, the Illinois'. And then you have states like Kentucky and Missouri who have already made very strong moves towards going right to work. Kentucky's got at the local level, they've got a governor who says he wants it statewide. And Missouri actually passed right to work in both chambers last year. Governor vetoed it, and they didn't quite have the votes to override. But you're going to see states like Illinois and Ohio under pressure because everywhere around them are going to be right to work states, and businesses, manufacturers are going to opt into those worker freedom states.
For more on this, and specifically West Virginia, and maybe how it relates back to the circumstances in Illinois with Governor Rauner proposing these right-to-work zones, at least, where local units of government could create right-to-work zones, hasn't been received very well in Illinois, but the fight continues. Let's get more expert insight on this from Vinny Vernuccio, who's the Director of Labor Policy at the Mackinac Center for Public Policy and has been in West Virginia testifying on the issue. Vinny, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Exciting times. We may just tip the scales on worker freedom in the nation.
Well, so tell us what happened and is happening, I guess, in real time in West Virginia, and what prompted the move to go right to work.
Well, as you know, West Virginia's economy is struggling. They have high unemployment. They have substantial job losses. Their wages are stagnating. The brave lawmakers out there knew that something had to be done, and they wanted to do that first checkbox to getting job creators and companies to look at the state and start bringing it back to prosperity.
Vinny, how do you see the legislative play out there? We know that the Senate passed it already. What's happening in the House of Delegates there, and what do you think happens if the Democratic governor there vetoes right to work?
Well, that's the interesting thing about West Virginia. Even if the Democrat Governor Tomlin out there vetoes the bill, they can actually override the veto with a simple majority of each house. So if it gets through the House of Delegates, which it may be doing today or tomorrow, or Thursday or Friday, then it's going to go to the governor's desk. The governor has 5 days to veto it, and when he does, both houses can override it with a simple majority.
Now, West Virginia is kind of one of these interesting states, right? Because you've got a Democrat governor, you've got a sort of conservative Democrat senator in Manchin. And Mitt Romney won West Virginia in 2012 by, 20, 25 points. I mean, it's a blowout. So West Virginia seems to me to be in a bit of a state of transition politically as well. Is that why there is movement in the legislature there that perhaps hasn't been up until this point?
I tell you, I don't know if you remember the story of right to work in Michigan, but there was a joke that they should call it the Bob King Freedom to Work bill. Bob King, who was the UAW president at the time, pushed a disastrous ballot proposal that would have prohibited right to work in Michigan and also given government unions an effective veto over legislation. And most observers saw that the governor of Michigan wasn't ready to have the conversation. He thought it was going to be too divisive for Michigan to have that conversation on right to work. and the unions forced it, and that's one of the reasons why Michigan went right to work in 2012. Well, you're seeing something similar play out in West Virginia. You can almost call it the Barack Obama Freedom to Work bill, because Obama's EPA's war on coal has decimated one of the main industries in that state. And you look at the unions and their overwhelming support for Barack Obama. So essentially what they were doing is they were contributing to the death of their own members' jobs. And I think that's one of the main reasons why you see the shift from a state that was very hard blue going more and more red.
Vinny, this is Michael Lucci again. What do you see going forward? If West Virginia is able to get this done, who does that put pressure on? What states does that put pressure on? And do you have any insight for where we might look next to see a state take on this issue of worker freedom and have legislators and a governor perhaps championing that issue and putting it through to bring right to work to their state also?
Oh, Michael, I really hate to do this to you and the other people of Illinois, but it's going to probably be some of your neighbors. The next one could be Kentucky. The newly elected Republican governor out there, he is saying it's one of his number one issues. He's trying to get Democrats to defect over to the Republican Party and then support right to work. If that doesn't work, he's making it one of the main campaign issues of the election later this year to get more people that'll vote for worker freedom elected in Kentucky to boost that majority. And then after that, depending on what happens if the governor's race in Missouri, you may see right to work there too. So it really is coming to the Illinois neighborhood. And what you've seen across the country is that right to work states have higher job growth, higher wage growth, lower unemployment. And when you factor in cost of living, workers are making more. Site Selection Magazine and other site selectors say that most job creators may not even look at states without the right to work law. So it may be unfortunate for Illinois, but I'm sorry, your neighbors may be going worker freedom in the not-too-distant future.
No, that's good. We don't want any of that stuff. We don't want low unemployment or high wages or any of that. So we're fine. Well, we'll just continue being the bad example so people know what not to do. He is Vinny Vernuccio, the Director of Labor Policy at the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. Vinny, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on.